A cuckoo clock, splattered with fresh blood, ticks away in the dimly lit room. It's exactly 7 o'clock. The wooden bird pops out, chirping a cheerful tune that contrasts with the carnage. Ryu Kang-min, a lean young man with messy black hair and a cynical gaze, adjusts his earpiece. "It's me," he says flatly. He reports the time back to HQ 19:00 Korean Standard Time. His mission is done. Behind him, the silver-haired unknown target lies motionless in a pool of blood, his utility knife useless on the floor. Target eliminated. Kang-min's eyes wander to a shelf stocked with cigarette packs, but he doesn't touch them. He looks down at his blood-flecked jacket. Being undercover as a student in Korea has one major drawback. His name tag identifies him as a student of Enil High School. The disguise is perfect but restrictive. He stands against the sunset, a cigarette held between his lips, but he can't actually light it up. Not legally, anyway. The withdrawal is hitting him hard. He feels like he's at the point where he'd settle for a pacifier. Walking through the crowded city, he regrets not stuffing his suitcase with smokes before he flew in. He remembers a time when kids could run errands to buy booze and cigarettes for their dads. Seems those days are long gone. Kang-min looks around at the city he left 10 years ago. It's changed beyond all recognition. Massive glass skyscrapers pierce the clouds. It's like they built a futuristic metropolis while he was away. Expensive cars line the streets, making the wealth of the city impossible to miss. Supercars are so common they've just become part of the background noise. Even the women look different, dressed in high-end fashion. The standard of living, the environment, everything has shifted. It's a whole new world. People walk past him, glued to their phones, completely oblivious to the boy who just finished a hit. Everything used to be much smaller, now it's all about scale. He spots a gargantuan inflatable duck floating in the river. He figures even the ducks got an upgrade alongside the country's status. Despite all the changes, the cherry blossoms in this park are exactly the same as he remembers. A little boy runs past his mother, shouting with excitement about the giant duck. The boy's father laughs, saying he already made a reservation for roast duck dinner. Kang-min watches them walk away. He stares at the falling petals, his expression unreadable as a memory begins to surface. In a sepia-toned flashback, a younger boy looks up at the trees with wide eyes. "Wow," he gasps. The boy tells his parents that popcorn is falling from the trees. His father smiles, gently correcting him. The father asks if there's a movie his son wants to see, promising real popcorn at the theater. The kid just hums happily, his mouth full of snacks. It was a simple, peaceful moment. The family walks into the light of the blossoms, the boy shouting about a movie called The Professor's Secret Lessons. His parents are stunned. Back in the present, the memory fades. Kang-min is alone again, standing under the same trees. His bored, cynical gaze returns. The past is just a distraction. Suddenly, a sharp beep cuts through the quiet. He reaches into his pocket. He pulls out a rugged, tactical smartphone. "Geez," he mutters, they don't even give him a second to reminisce. The screen displays a map with a red pin. His next target is nearby. Guess it's time to get back to work. He puts the device away, his eyes sharpening as he switches back into professional mode. As he walks, he spots an old, weathered sign that simply says cigarettes. It's a lucky find. He looks out over the neighborhood as the sun sets. The view from up here is surprisingly good. He approaches a small, traditional-looking supermarket. It's tucked away, far from the gleaming skyscrapers. He notes the cigarette sign again. This place finally feels like a neighborhood where real people actually live. Inside, the shelves are packed with everyday goods. It's a quiet, dusty shop. Kang-min slides the glass door open with a soft rattle. "Excuse me, Tilda," he calls out casually. He steps inside, peering into the dim interior. "Anybody home?" he asks, his voice echoing in the small space. The shop seems empty, but Kang-min doesn't mind. He figures he can just wait a bit. He looks at the cigarette shelf. Maybe he should just have a smoke while he's waiting. He scans the packs, his withdrawal making the decision for him. Suddenly, a voice rings out. "Are students even allowed to smoke?" Kang-min looks over to see a silver-haired man crouched among the shelves. It's the target. Kang-min doesn't miss a beat. Ah, there you are, he says smoothly. I'm just running an errand for my dad. He pulls out a sleek black credit card. Here's his card. He places it on the counter, telling the man to put the purchase on a 36-month installment plan. The silver-haired man stares at the card, his expression hardening. He knows exactly what that card means. He quickly realizes his mistake. Oops, sorry, he mutters. I'm actually a customer here too. Kang-min just smiles. He explains that he watched a lot of K-dramas while living abroad, and the guy just looked exactly like a store owner from one of those shows. The man chuckles nervously. He claims he recently arrived from overseas himself. It's a convenient lie. Kang-min agrees. What a coincidence, he says, his tone dripping with fake sincerity. Quite a coincidence indeed. He leans in, a cold smile playing on his lips. And by sheer coincidence, a framed photo sits on a nearby table next to a knife. We used to work in the exact same industry. Contract killing, he finishes. The friendly facade is gone. The silver-haired man lunges, his movement a blur of speed. The fight is on. He reaches for a red utility knife on the shelf, his fingers closing around the handle. A hitman from overseas, the man mutters. Are you here to kill me? Kang-min just stares back, unbothered by the question. Kang-min's expression is bored as he clutches a bag of snacks. You catch on quick. He grabs the man by the throat, his grip like iron. Traitor to the organization. He explains the situation as he dodges a desperate counterattack. The man murdered his own fellow members before fleeing. I'm here to eliminate you, Kang-min says simply. The man gets slammed back into the shelves, bottles and jars shattering around him. The man goes flying across the room, crashing into a pile of goods. He's outclassed and he knows it. Items are scattered everywhere, the floor covered in dust and debris. The silver-haired hitman is struggling to get back up. Kang-min looks down at the card in his hand. The man is stunned by its color. The man explains that the organization issues different colored cards. It's a hierarchy. Each color corresponds to a hitman's rank. Gold, silver, white, they all represent a level of skill. But the black card is something else entirely. It's a legend among their kind. It's reserved only for top-tier operatives, the man gasps, staring at the card on the counter. Kang-min stands over him, cold and detached. The silver-haired man is in shock. He's never heard of anyone as young as Kang-min being issued a black card. Kang-min cracks his knuckles, a slight smirk on his face. That feels pretty good to hear. He finds it flattering to get a compliment from a veteran senior, but it won't save the man's life. The man asks where his weapon is, eyeing Kang-min's empty hands. He's confused. Kang-min just shrugs. It got confiscated at airport security, he admits. Don't tell me you came here empty-handed, the man asks. The man can't believe it. To think a black card operative could be this sloppy and unprofessional, it's almost insulting. He snaps the blade off his utility knife, ready to finish this. The first basic rule of assassination, he begins. A weapon, he says. Kang-min's eyes widen as the sharp metal shard flies through the air towards his face. Kang-min catches the blade between his fingers with impossible speed. The second basic rule of assassination, he counters. A surprise attack. He lunges forward, the caught blade now a weapon in his own hands. A streak of light cuts through the room. The attack is blindingly fast. A spray of syrup arched through the air, painting the walls red. A plastic cap rolled across the floor. The silver-haired man couldn't help but focus intently on the fighting style of this student-clad kid. Why? The boy asked, his voice calm and light. Ryu Kang-min blocked the strike, the utility knife blade stopping just an inch from his throat. Why did you betray the organization? He asked, his voice cold and demanding. He stares down with a pitiless gaze. A hitman of your caliber must have enjoyed countless perks from the organization, he continues, the dimly lit shop amplifying his intimidating presence. He waits for an answer, his eyes fixed on the man. So what was your reason for betraying them? His eyes drift toward a discarded tuna can on the shelf. A tin can, he says, recalling the man's earlier words. A tin can, every single day, he replied to Kang-min's questioning. It feels just like being trapped inside a tin can, he continued, smoothly switching his weapon to his other hand with a silk-like motion. The man continued to rush him with a flurry of attacks, but Kang-min just calmly stepped back to evade. Their movements are a blur as they clash once more, sparks flying where metal meets metal. In the scuffle, pieces of tuna from the open can scatter across the floor like grisly debris. Kang-min holds up the sharp tuna can lid. "Nice metaphor," he remarks, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Taking creative writing classes at the community center or something?" he asks, completely unfazed by the life-or-death struggle. The man's face is a mask of agony. Kang-min leans in close. "You know it too, don't you?" They trade blows with lethal intent, the air filled with the sounds of their violent exchange. "Doing exactly as the organization commanded," the man began, recounting his former life. "Having to live as their hunting dog until the day you die. A hellish existence." The man's eyes widen, his vision clouded with pain and a flicker of something like realization. "I just wanted my freedom," he shouts, swinging his blade with a manic strength born of despair. Ryu Kang-min sidesteps the attack with ease, his movements fluid and precise. The silver-haired man overcommits to his strike, his body straining under the effort. A sharp glint of light catches him across the face. Another spray of blood marks the air. Kang-min stands tall as the man falters. "But in exchange for your freedom, you must have lost something." The sharp tuna can lid lodged deep into the man's body, blood pouring out in a gruesome stream. But he quickly regained his composure and continued in a cold, flat voice. "That's right, just one thing. My family," he rasps, the revelation hanging heavy in the room. He looks toward a family photograph resting on the counter. "Once the organization caught wind of my betrayal, they killed my family." Kang-min stares at him, his eyes dark and unblinking as he listens to the tragic confession. The organization secures the identities of every operative's family and keeps them under constant surveillance. Despite his wound, the man lunges again, his desperation bordering on madness. "To act as hostages. To prevent betrayal," he wheezes. Kang-min remains calm, his foot poised near a bag of flour. He kicks the bag, sending a massive plume of white powder into the air, obscuring everything. The white dust begins to settle, coating an apple and a knife sitting peacefully in a bowl. "Regretting it now?" Kang-min's voice cuts through the silence that follows the explosion. He launches a final, powerful kick that sends the silver-haired man flying through the shop's fixtures. Kang-min stands over the fallen man once more. "Is too little too late." The man lies defeated, his clothes soaked through with his own blood as he stares blankly. "As the price for freedom, I had to pay with my family's lives," he whispers, looking at the cracked photo frame. A grotesque, bloody smile spreads across his face. "That's a cheap price to pay." Kang-min is genuinely stunned. "You knew your family would be sacrificed, and you still did it." The man closes his eyes, his life slowly fatting away. "Everyone, every single one of them." Kang-min looks away, his expression turning to one of disgust. Nothing but irritating nonsense. A flashback begins, showing the silver-haired man as he used to be, walking into the shop. "I've been a regular at this place for a while, so I've known the owner for a long time." The convenience store owner looks pale and exhausted. "But today of all days, the guy looked like he was going to collapse at any second," the unknown target recalls in a flashback. The unknown target senior watches him, his expression softening slightly. "Concerned, I told him," he narrates. He remembers his words to the old man. "Why don't you close up shop and get some rest?" He looks at the family photo on the counter. To which he replied, the flashback continues. The convenience store owner smiles warmly, his eyes crinkling. "If I rest, who's going to feed my family, man?" Back in the present, the room is filled with dust and shadow. "Such a good person, right?" the dying man's voice rasps. He looks at the shattered remains of the family photo. A devoted family man sacrificing himself for his bedridden wife and clueless kids. Ryu Kang-min stands amidst the wreckage, dedicating his whole life to his family in a tiny little shop. The man continues. Kang-min's reflection is visible in the broken glass door, his expression cold. The shopkeeper's body slumped against the wall, his blood pooling on the floor. "What an idiot." Gang-min looks down at him, his gaze piercing the gloom. And that's your reason for killing him. He stands tall, a silhouette against the chaos. It's annoying, he mutters. The way people talk about sacrificing for their family as if it's some kind of happiness. Gang-min's eyes burn with an intense, dark light. The silver-haired man looks up, his breathing shallow. You work to protect your family, don't you? The dust swirls around Gang-min as he remains silent, the weight of the man's words hanging in the air. That's why you've been living as the organization's hunting dog all this time, the man continues. Gang-min's eyes narrow, a dangerous glint in his red-tinged gaze. Let me give you a piece of advice as your senior, the man wheezes. Family is a leash, he continued, his mindset twisted. Suddenly a small sound echoes through the shop, a tick from the cuckoo clock. Gang-min's head snaps toward the shelf. A violent explosion of glass and cans erupts from the shelves behind him as the man makes one last move. Erg, Gang-min grunts, shielding himself from the flying debris. Rather than living my whole life tied to a leash, the man's voice rings out. The silver-haired man lunges with a final, desperate burst of energy, his blade ready. A powerful shockwave of motion cuts through the air, their final struggle reaching its climax. The silver-haired man's face is twisted in a final, grim smile, blood on his lips. I'd rather sever my own neck. Inside a cramped storage room, the silver-haired unknown target, Senior, stands with his guard up, clutching a pair of blades. He freezes as a sudden movement cuts through the air, leaving him completely blindsided. The silver-haired target stood frozen, a look of shock on his face as blood began to trickle from his neck. Behind him, Ryu Kang-min wasn't even satisfied with the kill, complaining that it was a shame the makeshift blade wasn't large enough to take his head clean off. Ryu Kang-min walks away, his school uniform splattered with fresh blood. He's not even breaking a sweat, just annoyed that the tiny metal shard he had to use was too small for a clean cut. Behind him, the senior hitman stands frozen, his throat already slit. The target freezes, blood already soaking into his collar from a clean cut on his neck. He looks completely lost, unable to process a strike he didn't even see coming. Ryu Kang-min holds up the weapon, a tiny, jagged shard of metal from a tin can lid. The veteran hitman can only stare in disbelief, realizing his life is ending because of a piece of scrap. Ryu Kang-min stands in the dark, holding a tiny, blood-stained box cutter blade. He looks back at his victim, asking how a pro could let something like this happen. He reminded the guy that he should have kept a better eye on his surroundings. In a split second, the blade the man had thrown at him turned into the very thing that ended his life. He stares at the cheap piece of metal in his hand. It's not exactly a high-tech weapon, but it's more than enough for the job. He shares the third basic rule of assassination: never throw things away carelessly. Even trash can be lethal if you know how to use it. The large kitchen knife lies useless on the floor next to the tiny blade that actually did the work. The silver-haired target is slumped on the ground, clutching his throat in total disbelief. He can't wrap his head around being taken down by a box cutter. From above, the scene is cold. The target asks if he was being toyed with the whole time, but Kang-min just gives him a flat no. He gestures toward a shattered photo frame on the floor. He just wanted to see if there were any real motives behind the guy's betrayal. Kang-min looks down, completely unfazed by the blood. To him, this is just another Tuesday. The man's throat is a mess. He's shocked that a rank hitman would show this much leeway to someone like him. He kneeling target realizes he was truly sent by the organization to finish him off. Kang-min just tells him he's got it all wrong. He leans in, his expression unreadable. He whispers that the real reason he came back to Korea has absolutely nothing to do with this guy. The target's eyes widen in shock. Stopping here was apparently just a way for Kang-min to kill two birds with one stone. His main target is someone incredibly special, someone he hasn't even found yet. It's a mission so dangerous, he has to put his own life on the line. He recalls the man saying he wanted freedom. He looks back at the blood-stained tools of his trade. He sincerely hopes the guy is satisfied. As he walks away, he tells the dying man that he's finally found eternal freedom. On the wall, the cuckoo clock is splattered with blood. It strikes the hour, and the little mechanical bird pops out, signaling that the job is officially done. Kang-min is outside now, casually reporting in on his phone despite being covered in gore. He lights a cigarette and takes a drag, figuring that was a decent enough warm-up. He's got to head straight to his next destination. He starts walking toward his real mark. He stands on an overlook, watching the sunset over the city where his primary target is hiding. He looks down at his clothes. He's not worried about the mission, but he definitely needs to get his school uniform refitted after this mess. He stares out at the horizon, ready for the next day. Because tomorrow is the official start date for his new contract hit. The scene shifts to Neil High School. This is where his target is supposedly located. Inside the classroom, the students are settling in, completely unaware of the legendary hitman joining their ranks. A group of girls, including Haeyin, is busy talking amongst themselves. Kang-min plans to handle this like he always does. Haeyin looks up, sensing something different. Kang-min's goal is to be stealthy. He intends to be swift and efficient. The teacher is already busy at the chalkboard, not noticing the new transfer student entering. He plans to eliminate the target the moment they're spotted. But first, he needs to get through the introductions. He walks in looking bored and immediately asks the entire class if anyone can spot him a cigarette. So much for being stealthy. Flashback to 1 month ago in the Angelos district, at a heavily guarded congressman's residence. Kang-min thinks the security detail here is a bit much. He stands there, gun resting on his shoulder, looking completely unimpressed. He's standing in the courtyard, surrounded by dozens of guards pointing guns at him. He wonders why a private residence needs this many men. He holds his revolver up, asking the guards if they'd just do him a favor and drop dead to save him some time. His target is Manuel Santos, a stern-looking congressman of the district. The man just watches, realizing his high-priced security hasn't stopped the assassin at all. Santos begs for his family's safety before anything else happens. He wants them out of this. The wife and child are terrified, huddled together as the boy cries for his mom. She tries her best to comfort him, promising everything will be okay. The congressman insists they have nothing to do with whatever business is being conducted tonight. Kang-min considers the request for a second. He just needs the hostages released first. He casually agrees to let them go. The mother and child make a run for it, looking back in shock as he barely even glances at them. He explains his personal code. He never harms anyone except his target. Of course, that rule goes out the window if they decide to attack him first. He gives a slight, chilling smile. That's his ironclad rule, no unnecessary casualties. Santos is visibly relieved, thanking goodness that his family is safe. Suddenly, the captain of the guard yells for everyone to prepare to fire. The moment of peace is short-lived. The guards can't believe how soft-hearted he is. They figure a pro from his level wouldn't normally be this lenient. Santos admits he was actually terrified when he heard an operative from Batala was coming for him. Then, a single gunshot rings out. The story shifts to the headquarters of the syndicate, the massive, glowing hotel casino Batala. On the surface, it's just a playground for the wealthy, where high-stakes gambling is the main attraction. The Bathala dealer expertly spreads a deck across the table. Behind the glitz and glamour, something far more dangerous is happening. The casino floor looks normal enough, filled with people hopping to strike it rich. But deep inside, tucked away from the public eye, is a very special table meant for a different kind of deal. A client sitting in the shadows comments on how confident the syndicate must be to take hit contracts out in the open like this. The dealer explains that the business they conduct here is something not even the government can touch. They're entirely above the law. The client is impressed. It seems the syndicate's reputation as the best in the business isn't just a rumor. He asks if they can really pull off the kill. The dealer answers with a simple, confident, naturally. She emphasizes that their casino only employs the absolute best contractors in the world. No amateur work allowed. She asks the client to make a selection from the available ranks. Each card represents a different level of lethality. The ranking is simple. The contractor's skill depends entirely on the card they hold. The client says he's well aware of how it works. He points toward the highest tier available. He's not looking for a bargain tonight. He places his hand on a single card, his choice made. He wants the elite. The spade ace. He wants the top-tier contractor for this specific job. The dealer acknowledges the choice, calling it an excellent card. It's the peak of their organization. She warns him that because it's a spade ace, the contract fee is going to be pretty exorbitant. You get what you pay for. The client opens up cases filled with literal mountains of casino chips. He clearly came prepared to pay whatever it takes. He holds up the card, demanding the hit be done immediately. His only question is where the contractor is right now. Cut back to the aftermath of the courtyard hit. A book sits on a blood-splattered table. Kang-min stands by his rule of only killing the target. He stands among the bodies of the guards, lighting a cigarette with bloody hands. He had warned them what would happen if they attacked first. He walks through the carnage, unfazed by the dozens of dead men at his feet. He told them that's what would happen. The congressman's wife can only stare in horror, clutching her child as she gasps for breath. She's alive, but the scene is a nightmare. Kang-min stops for a moment, giving her a quick apology for her husband's death before moving on. Talk about cold. In the background, Santos's body is slumped against a shattered glass partition. Kang-min reflects on the price of the sins he's committed. He walks away from the massacre, thinking about how he'll eventually have to pay his own debt in full someday. Fast forward to the present day at Enil High School. The sun is shining, and everything looks peaceful from above. In the classroom, the students are all looking at the front of the room, confused by the strange new student standing there. Kang-min stands there with his backpack on, looking totally disinterested. His first question to the room, anyone got a cigarette? The Enil High teacher is completely frozen. He can't even process what he just heard from a transfer student on his first day. The teacher adjusts his glasses, asking who the hell he is and why he's acting like he owns the place. Kang-min just points out the obvious. He's the new transfer. The Enil High teacher, looking exhausted already, tells Ryu Kang-min to just finish his intro and go sit down. Kang-min, ever the professional, gives a simple okay. He gives a low-energy greeting to his new classmates, who all seem pretty confused by this guy's vibe. He gives his name as Ryu Kang-min, but the narrator reminds us of his true identity. He's Spade A, a top-tier contractor for the Batala assassination syndicate. He claims he just moved from Daejeon, looking completely bored with the whole social song and dance. The narrator explains that Kang-min is here to eliminate a target, but because security is so tight in this country, a flashy hit is totally out of the question. So he's gone undercover as a regular high schooler to get close to his mark. Talk about a weird first day of school. The mission takes place in the heart of Seoul, where he has to blend in perfectly. Meet Hae-in, a sharp-eyed student with long black hair and thick bangs who seems to be paying close attention. Kang-min knows he needs this identity to approach the target naturally. Then there's Cheol-min, a tough-looking guy with a buzz cut and full-sleeve tattoos. Kang-min gives a fake smile, telling the class he just wants a fun high school experience. But as he smiles, the narrator drops the hammer. He's only here to make the kill. We jump back to a flashback of the syndicate's headquarters at the Hotel Casino Batala. It looks like a high-end palace for the underworld. The Bathala dealer explains the target is a South Korean currently living in Seoul. Kang-min listens intently, looking like he's ready for business. He sits in a massive, ornate chair, casually checking his weapon as he hears there's a slight complication with the job. Kang-min leans in, his expression shifting from bored to serious as he asks what the catch is. The dealer reveals the bombshell. They don't actually know who the target is, like they have zero visual ID. Kang-min is completely stunned. He calls it card-chewing nonsense, which is a pretty epic way to say someone's full of crap. The dealer hands over an envelope, explaining that the client only provided a single piece of information. Kang-min's eye twitches as he prepares for the absolute worst-case scenario info-wise. The dealer places a file on the table that's almost completely empty. The target's name is the only thing written there. He stares at the blank folder, trying to wrap his head around hunting a ghost with just a name tag. He goes silent for a moment, the weight of the mystery sinking in. This isn't just a hit, it's a scavenger hunt. A slow smile spreads across his face as he decides that this is actually pretty interesting. He loves a challenge. Back in the present, Kang-min reveals that his preliminary investigation is already done. He's been busy. He stands outside classroom 17, convinced that he's narrowed down the target's location to this specific room. With a heavy slide, he pushes the door open to start his search. First day, and he's already on the hunt. He peeks in, scanning the students as they go about their day, totally unaware of the wolf in their midst. The classroom is buzzing with energy, but one spot feels different to him. He's looking for something specific. He spots an empty desk right by the window. The target didn't even bother to show up for school today. Typical. While he was standing in the hallway, a typical scene of school bullying was unfolding. The tattooed student asked the unlucky kid how he dared to block his path, then didn't hesitate to kick him. After landing a heavy blow, he growled some textbook insults like, "Are you blind or something?" The student goes flying backward, tumbling down the hallway in a heap. The tattooed guy walked away as if nothing had happened, muttering about how the automatic door sensor must be broken. The girl beside him chimed in, complimenting his dark sense of humor. Suddenly, the girl in the group, Haeyin, let out a gasp when she saw our transfer student standing in the distance. It was clear that she was more than a little impressed by Kang-min's introduction. She immediately called out to her friends, while Kang-min looked back at the group with total indifference. Haeyin, Cheolmin, and their crew called out to him. Haeyin asked why he was all by himself. She wasn't about to let him be a loner. He bluntly tells her it's because he has no friends. Then he realizes it might be time for Plan B. They end up in the back of the school, a gritty area filled with dumpsters and trash, the perfect place for a cigarette break. Kang-min takes a deep inhale, finally satisfying the nicotine withdrawal that's been bugging him all day. He exhales a cloud of smoke, squatting down like a pro. The delinquents are all eyes on him now. One of the guys comments on how satisfying he makes smoking look. Haeyin just giggles, calling him pretty cute. Kang-min is winning them over. Cheolmin squats down too, asking if he really came from Daejeon. Kang-min just gives him a simple yeah. The new friendship is off to a solid start. Cheolmin squats down low, narrowing his eyes as he asks the new guy if he knows a certain Lee Seung-won back in Daejeon. He mentions that Seung-won is the one who runs things over there. Kang-min realizes it's time to start crafting the Ryu Kang-min persona to properly blend in. With a straight face, Kang-min lies through his teeth, claiming he and Seung-won are practically best buds and even shared some drinks before he left. He continues the act, making it sound like he was a real player in the Daejeon social scene. He's building a reputation from thin air. He spins a wild tale about a night where the guy got completely wasted and started smashing up a karaoke machine. He's a natural storyteller. Haeyin is totally sold, giving him a playful smile as she admits she knew there was something different about the new transfer student. Cheolmin is satisfied, realizing the new guy isn't just talk. He seems genuinely impressed by Kang-min's fake credentials. He offers a hand of friendship, officially inviting Kang-min into their group. Kang-min notes that these are his first friends in Korea. Kang-min accepts the gesture, sealing his cover. He's officially part of the crew now. The group walked off together under the warm orange glow of the sunset, looking like a tight-knit squad of students. They cross the street, chatting casually as the school day finally comes to a close. Kang-min is playing his part to perfection. One of the guys asks if he's heading straight to a cram school, which is basically a nightmare for a guy like Kang-min. Kang-min meticulously observed the group, wanting to understand the lives of these Korean students to blend in more effectively. The two buddies finally parted ways as one jumped onto a shuttle bus, with the other joking that he'd better make it back alive from his cram school session. He stands there alone as the bus pulls away, the golden light of the evening casting a long shadow behind him. The silence of the street seems to trigger something deep within him. He's not just a student, he's a weapon. Suddenly we're pulled into a dark memory from his past. A black van and the desperate voices of a child calling for his mom and dad. A young, terrified Kang-min is huddled in a dark corner, his body shaking from pure, unadulterated fear. Rough hands grab him as voices yell to hurry up and get him on a boat. His nightmare was just beginning. The little boy looks up with wide, haunted eyes, his childhood being stolen away in a single, violent moment. He's surrounded by the silhouettes of several men who have orders to take him to Angelo's. That name clearly carries a lot of weight. Back in the present, the shadow of that incident still hangs heavy over him. It's the moment that defined his entire life. He walks along the sidewalk, wondering if his life would be real instead of a constant disguise, if he had never been taken. His deep reflection is suddenly cut short when Hae-in stumbles right into him, letting out a startled whoops to break the tension. Hae-in clings to Kang-min's arm, claiming she almost tripped. He asks who she even is, forcing her to repeat her name and their other new acquaintance, Cheol-min. The girl asks if he's heading straight home, and he admits his first day of school has him completely drained. This girl leads Kang-min into a private lounge, acting all sweet and innocent. He just goes along with it, playing the part of the clueless new kid perfectly. The entire place is lit up in this moody, suggestive pink light. Kang-min even comments on how relaxing it is, really selling the act. Then she starts stripping off her jacket, making things real awkward real fast. He just sits there on the bed, watching her go through the motions. She tells him they can just chill out, watch some TV, and play video games. She even points out the massive stash of ramen they've got ready for later. She gives him this suggestive smile, thinking she's got him right where she wants him. She's really leaning into the sweet girl routine, blushing and playing with her hair. Then she drops her shirt and steps right between his legs. She leans in close, asking him what he wants to do first. Suddenly, Kang-min's expression shifts to one of pure shock. Flashbulbs go off as a bunch of guys burst in with their phones, catching the whole thing. The bullies are losing it, laughing at the scandal they just caught on camera. They shove the phone in his face, mocking him for looking like he's about to cry. The girl drops the act immediately, laughing about how easy it was to bait him. Kang-min keeps playing dumb, asking why they're doing this to him. That's when the tattooed leader, Cheol-min, steps up to explain the trap. It turns out they did some digging into that Lee Seung-won guy he mentioned at school. And they found a massive hole in Kang-min's story. The guy he claimed forced him to drink actually has a liver condition. He can't touch alcohol. Cheol-min even called the guy up and surprise, he's never even heard of a Ryu Kang-min. They've decided he's just a loser who tried to lie his way into sounding tough. Kang-min starts stammering, pretending to have some kind of explanation. But before he can finish, the ginger bully just slaps the life out of him. They tell him that from now on, he's their automatic door, basically the class servant. The ginger bully isn't done yet, and decides to humiliate him even more. He grabs Kang-min's uniform and starts yanking on the buttons. He tears the whole thing open, wanting to see some skin. But as the shirt falls away, Cheol-min's face goes completely blank. Everyone in the room freezes when they see what's actually underneath. Kang-min's torso is covered in a grid of brutal, deep-seated scars. We flash back to where it all began, at a high-end casino in Manila called Batala. A dealer slides a mission contract across the table toward him. It's a target with absolutely no information provided other than a name. Kang-min isn't impressed, questioning if they expect him to hunt down everyone with that name in Korea. But the syndicate doesn't care about his questions. The orders are final. If he finishes this one last mission, he's promised his freedom and a return to Bathala. But a part of him wonders if the thought of his family will eventually hold him back. He's worried that if his desire to stay with them grows too strong, he might do something reckless. Because if he slips up, he knows the syndicate will target his family without hesitation. The dealer tells him not to worry. This isn't just another hit job. This contract is special, more dangerous than anything he's ever handled. And for a job this big, the syndicate is offering a reward he can't refuse. Eternal freedom from the life of a killer. Kang-min is stunned. He's been a tool for so long he forgot freedom was an option. "You mean it?" he asks, needing to hear the promise out loud. She tells him that once this is over, he'll never have to step foot in this world again. Back in the present, the bullies are staring at him in absolute shock. They've never seen a human body covered in so many battle scars. Even Heian is speechless, wondering what kind of monster they just provoked. Kang-min's gaze goes cold as he realizes the performance is over. He has a rule about never hurting people who aren't his targets. Unless they're stupid enough to attack him first, that is. And these guys just crossed that line. He strikes like a cobra, his fist connecting before the guy can even blink. A single kick sends another bully crashing across the room. This was all part of the plan: find the school's power players. Create a persona they'd find interesting enough to mess with. Then bait them into starting a fight he can justifiably finish. He stands over the first victim and tells the rest of them to step right up. He starts adjusting his sleeves, done playing the victim. To understand how he got this strong, you have to go back 6 years. This is Kamatayan Island, the syndicate's private training hell. The trainees are given a limited time to complete their trials. And the ocean tests are the most brutal of them all. Kang-min was chained to a heavy weight and dropped to the seafloor. At just 12 years old, trainee 55 was being left for dead. 8 minutes pass, and most people would have drowned long ago. His lungs feel like they're going to burst, but he refuses to give up. He gathers every ounce of strength he has left to break his bonds. He manages to snap the heavy chains and surface for air. He drags himself onto the shore, completely spent. He's even got a little octopus that hitched a ride on his head. He jokes that his grandmother in heaven will have to wait a bit longer to see him. He takes a shaky breath, finally thinking the nightmare is over. But then he feels the cold press of a gun against his temple. His trainer stands over him, complaining that he was a minute over the limit. Kang-min just closes his eyes, thinking he survived drowning just to be executed. A shot rings out, startling the birds in the jungle nearby. The Batala flag flies over the island, marking another day of survival. The trainer just laughs as he watches the boy's reaction. The scene shifts to show the tables have turned. The trainer is now pinned to the sand with the gun in Kang-min's hand. Yet he still sneers, calling him a grandmother fucker for his near-death joke. The trainer is impressed, nodding that using surrounding objects to survive is a professional trait. He wonders if the kid's lack of fear was a calculated move, or just a final act of desperation. But Kang-min didn't give those words a second thought, explaining that in this line of work, you never trust the first shot. The first shell is always a blank, a simple safety measure to prevent accidents. Kang-min racked the slide and pointed out that the next shot would be live ammo. Kang-min stared back with cold eyes, his gun primed, and asked the trainer, "This is a real bullet, isn't it?" The sound of the second shot echoes across the tropical island, startling the birds. Years later, Kang-min is in a much more civilized hell, a room cafe in South Korea. Looking down at the aftermath of the fight, he realizes how different this life is. His current opponents are just ordinary high schoolers who have no idea what real pain is. He knows he has to hold back. Killing them would ruin his cover completely. He needs to handle this situation with a bit more finesse than he used on the island. The bullies stare at him in disbelief, terrified by the scars they've just uncovered. He starts step 1 of his plan, which is all about finding a justification for his violence. He needs to make sure this looks like a fair fight that they started, not an assassination. He feigns distress over his ruined uniform, picking up buttons from the floor. The bully is furious, shouting that a torn shirt is nothing compared to the beating he's about to give. He lunges forward, swinging a heavy fire extinguisher at Kang-min's head. Kang-min doesn't even move, simply asking the guy if he has medical insurance. His eyes take on a predatory gleam as he catches the heavy canister with one hand. Now comes step 2. He needs to imprint his terrifying presence on their souls. He grabs the bully by the face, his expression shifting into something truly demonic. He mocks the guy, promising that the hospital bill will be worth the performance he's giving. With a brutal show of force, he slams the bully's head into the metal bed frame. He wants this memory of absolute power to be burned into their consciousness forever. The remaining bullies gasp in horror as they see the damage he's inflicted. The impact was so strong that the metal frame of the bed actually gave way. He successfully branded himself as a target far more dangerous than anything they've ever faced. With the room silenced by fear, he finally asks the question he came here for. One of the guys starts hysterically screaming, willing to say anything to save his own skin. Kang-min ignores the theatrics and asks about the missing member of their group. He's looking for the student who never shows up to class, the one who's been held back. He slowly approaches the last standing bully, asking for the target's current location. His voice is low and threatening, leaving no room for any more lies or excuses. The bully is completely broken, his face pale as he realizes there's no escape. He turns and bolts for the door, his screams of terror echoing down the hallway. He dives into the bathroom and slams the lock, thinking he might finally be safe. A massive crash shakes the entire room as Kang-min kicks the door in. The wood splinters, and the frame buckles under the incredible force of the strike. Kang-min stands in the opening, his shirt hanging open and a terrifying smile on his face. He tells the guy to come out, promising he won't hit him, but then he stops in his tracks. He looks around the small room and realizes the bully has somehow managed to vanish. Skipped, content blocked by AI safety filter. Just as Kang-min realizes the room is empty, a shadow looms behind him and a metal cable loops around his neck. It turns out the bully's panicked retreat was nothing more than a calculated performance to set up an ambush. The guy pulls back with all his might, screaming hysterically about his dreams of becoming a legendary actor. He's convinced that this desperate sneak attack is his ticket to victory over the high school's new monster. But with just a wave of his hand, the showerhead broke into pieces, leaving the kid in complete shock. The student's eyes dart upward in shock, his face drenched in sweat as a voice calls out from the shadows. Kang-min mocks the boy's terrified reaction, revealing that he's been playing along with the acting the entire time. Like a scene from an action thriller, Kang-min drops from the ceiling with lethal speed. With his eyes glowing a menacing red, he closes in for the final strike, leaving the bully with absolutely nowhere to hide. A roundhouse kick from Kang-min left the bathroom looking like it had been completely dismantled. He moves on to step 3 of his calculated plan, the sound of rushing water filling the ruined bathroom. His ultimate goal is to instill fear, ensuring that no one in this school ever dares to stand in his way again. Haeyeon is completely frantic, trying to convince the others that they need to make a run for it immediately. She's even calculated the exact speed they'd need on an electric scooter to outrun the monster before them. But Kang-min just sighs, his back still turned, asking if such a drastic escape is really necessary. He slowly turns around, his torn shirt exposing a chest covered in horrific scars and fresh bruises from his life of constant combat. His gaze is heavy and cold as he stares down the remaining bullies, his footsteps echoing in the small room. He doesn't want to chase them. He just wants the information they're hiding about the student who's missing. Choi Hee-won is losing her cool, frantically waving her hands and telling Cheol-min to hurry up because he's already coming. Cheol-min's tattooed hand clamps onto the doorknob. Cheol-min reaches for the handle, his mind flashing back to his days as a top MMA prospect at a national selection match. He was once considered the prime candidate to take the whole championship. Ryu Kang-min stands in the middle of the wreckage, surrounded by the bullies he just systematically dismantled. One is curled up on the floor and another is out cold on the bed, while Cheol-min and Choi Hee-won can only watch from the doorway in total shock. He looks perfectly calm, despite the talk of massive prizes and glory hanging in the air. The leader, Jang Hyun-soo, isn't about to run. He was a top MMA prospect before his career ended in violence, and seeing a real opponent just makes his competitive mania flare up. He crushes the metal doorknob in his palm, thinking about how all that glory and fame used to be right there for the taking. The leader looms over a crushed doorknob, staring down Ryu Kang-min. He thinks back to the time he ended a career by crushing an opponent's skull. Ryu Kang-min stands his ground with his shirt wide open. A network of deep, jagged scars covers his chest, proving he's seen far worse than a high school bully. Instead of backing down, Cheol-min is actually getting hyped up. Finding someone genuinely strong has his competitive instincts taking over, and he admits it's been a long time since he's had a real challenge. Ryu Kang-min stands there with his shirt ripped wide open, exposing a glimpse of the scars underneath. His expression stays dead cold as someone shouts his name. Jang Hyun-soo lunges forward with a manic grin. He's completely lost to his competitive mania, shouting that they should fight until one of them is crushed. Frustrated by the bully's sudden disappearance, he slams his hand against the wall, the impact echoing through the small room. The furniture rattles as he continues to search every corner, his eyes finally landing on the phone and items left behind on the side table. In the room next door, a student stops what he's doing, completely distracted by the violent sounds coming through the wall. He tries to laugh it off and explain to his girlfriend that the noise is coming from the other side, but he's clearly starting to sweat. The girl stares in shock, her hand over her mouth, as a voice demands to know if they're really just going to sit there and listen to the noise coming from the other side of the wall. This guy's fed up with the noise coming through the walls, so he decides the best move is to just outnoise the neighbors. He gets back to business on the bed, promising to go so hard they'll actually break the walls down. Kang-min hits the leader so hard he flies straight through the solid wall. Debris scatters everywhere as the room literally breaks apart. In the next room, a guy just freezes in total shock. A whole person just crashed into his space while he was minding his own business. Step 4 is officially done. Step 4, eliminate the leader. He hits the ground hard, surrounded by bits of the wall he just flew through. He's barely twitching now, completely out of the fight. Ryu Kang-min stands amidst the wreckage, his open shirt revealing a torso covered in deep combat scars. After smashing the lead bully clean through the wall, he just casually rubs his head and complains about how cheaply the place was built. Taking out the leader was just another step to make sure the rest of the group lost all control. He doesn't even acknowledge the girl cowering in the corner as she screams in terror. His gaze is cold and clinical, looking totally detached from the violence. Every single tedious step he's taken so far has been building up to one specific goal. Choi Hee-won panics, frantically rattling a door handle that refuses to budge. From the shadows, Ryu Kang-min looms over her, his hand reaching out as the final step of his plan begins. He leans in close, mockingly pointing out that the door needs to be pushed, not pulled. The girl collapses to the floor, hysterical with fear and begging him not to hit her. Kang-min just offers a cold smile, finding her terror more amusing than anything else. He crouches down to her level, claiming he never planned on hurting her. He just has a favor to ask. Hee-won remains curled up on the ground, listening to his every word. He gently lifts her face, explaining that there's something only she can do for him. He stares her down, asking if she'll cooperate. Trembling, she can only manage a weak yeah. With her successfully under his thumb, he stands back up to finish the job. His voice turns serious as he asks about the held-back student he's been hunting for. Meanwhile, across town, a decrepit building stands silent in the middle of the night. Deep inside, a set of metal stairs leads down into a dark, reinforced basement. Shelves are packed with hard drives and storage bins, the nervous system of an illegal business. A phone screen shows a digital wallet overflowing with over $1.5 million in assets. A piece of high-end tuna is lifted with chopsticks. The crew is clearly celebrating a big win. The boss of the operation relaxes in his leather chair, enjoying the feast. He jokes with his men, comparing the quality of the sashimi to the people they exploit. The table is covered in expensive food and liquor as the gang settles in. One of the thugs reports that their latest video is doing so well, it's literally breaking the site's traffic. He pulls up the link to show the boss exactly what's causing the frenzy. It's a hidden camera recording of a bedroom, and the download numbers are through the roof. The boss laughs as he eats, mocking the people who pay to watch a guy's private solo show. He's ecstatic about how much money they're making from just one video. He raises his chopsticks in a celebratory toast, calling the profitable clip a masterpiece. A tattooed subordinate expresses concern that the traffic spike will lead the cops right to them. The boss just scoffs, telling him there's nothing to worry about. He explains that their servers are all overseas, keeping them safe from local authorities. He boasts that their hideout is so well hidden that even the feds couldn't find it. His gloating is suddenly interrupted by a series of sharp, rhythmic knocks on the door. The room falls silent as every eye turns toward the heavy entrance. The boss looks up, his smug expression replaced by confusion. A dark shadow is visible through the bars of the door window. The boss gestures for one of his men to go and see who it is. A thug cracks the door open, rudely asking the visitor what they want. A man in a black leather jacket with a rabbit logo on the back steps into the room. He walks in with a slow, deliberate pace, his gaze sweeping the room. The intruder, Jang Hyun-soo, looks around with cold, unblinking eyes. The boss stares him down, unimpressed by the blonde kid who just waltzed in. The thugs quickly surround him, demanding to know which gang family sent him. They start nomming local gangs, assuming he's just another rival coming for a cut. Ignoring the threats, Jang Hyun-soo reaches into his jacket and demands they take the video down immediately. The massive thug looms over Jang Hyun-soo, laughing and telling him to lower his zipper instead of acting tough. He lunges forward with a roar, convinced the blonde kid is about to piss himself from fear. The other thugs join in the mockery, telling their buddy to take it easy so the room doesn't end up reeking of urine. A sudden, deafening crack echoes through the basement as blood sprays across the laughing man's face. He stands there frozen, clutching his own face in total shock while his partner looks on, confused. Another thug hits the deck, screaming in agony as he holds his mangled ear. The bald man is in a full-blown panic, realizing the bang he just heard wasn't a toy, it was a real bullet. Jang Hyun-soo doesn't say a word, his gun leveled directly at the man's forehead. He pulls the trigger again, sending a heavyset thug tumbling backward into the darkness. From above, the scene is a bloodbath. Jang stands in the center of the carnage, completely unbothered. One of the survivors stares at the smoking barrel, his mind finally catching up to the lethal reality of the situation. Jang keeps a steady grip on his weapon, the barrel still venting a thin trail of smoke. He looks down at the terrified criminal, repeating his demand with zero emotion. "The video, take it down." The boss of the operation jumps to his feet, knocking over his expensive meal as he realizes he's in a life-or-death situation. One of the tattooed thugs tries to jump him from the side, screaming at him to hand over the bastard gun. Jang doesn't even break his stride, putting a bullet into the guy and dropping him instantly. Blood-spattered and cold, Jang stares into the room, reiterating his order for the fourth time. The wounded thug tries to scramble away, desperately telling himself it's just a powerful BB gun. He shouts for the others to rush the toy, trying to build up enough courage to attack again. The last of the goons charge forward in a desperate final attempt to overwhelm him. On the back of Jang's jacket, the rabbit logo with the twin pistols seems to mock the dying men. Precision shots ring out, dropping both attackers where they stand. The floor is littered with bodies and brass casings as the smoke begins to settle. Jang stands alone in the middle of the room, the only one left standing among the ruins of the operation. He slowly turns his attention back to the only target left alive, the boss. The boss is frantically typing at a keypad, his hands shaking so hard he can barely hit the buttons. He's stuffing a bag with stacks of cash, horrified that a toy could actually blow someone's head apart. Terrified, he wonders if he should call the police, but realizes his only hope is to grab the money and vanish. He doesn't even hear Jang approach until the cold metal of the barrel is pressed against the back of his skull. Jang looms over him like a reaper, demanding for the last time that he take the video down. Looking around at the pigs on the floor, the boss finally understands that Jang isn't bluffing. He starts sobbing, swearing that he'll delete it immediately if he's allowed to live. He points to the hard drive reader, telling Jang he can take the drive, smash it, or do whatever he wants with it. As he cowers, the boss begs to know why Jang is going this far, asking if a victim hired a professional hitman. Jang looks at him with a mix of disgust and confusion, asking what the hell he's talking about. The boss points to the phone on the table, which is currently playing the masterpiece video they were selling. Jang looks at the screen, it's a hidden camera clip titled "Camera Test," and the shirtless guy in it is him. He stares at the screen with a terrifying, wide-eyed expression, whispering that it looks small. His calm demeanor vanishes as he shoves the gun into the boss's face, screaming that the video makes him look small. A single shot rings out, spraying blood over the half-eaten plate of sashimi. Outside, the city is quiet, completely oblivious to the massacre that just took place in the basement. The camera pulls back, showing the residential neighborhood as the night continues in silence. A dimly lit, cluttered bedroom suggests a resident who prefers the cover of night. On the wall, a name tag for Ryu Kang-min sits next to the Enil High School crest, marking his identity. A steep concrete staircase descends into a gloomy basement, far from the prying eyes of the public. An industrial light fixture, encased in a protective metal cage, casts a harsh glow on the damp walls. On a workbench, a collection of precision tools and small mechanical parts are laid out with surgical care. Ryu Kang-min works silently under a desk lamp, meticulously cleaning the components of a high-powered rifle. He carefully threads a suppressor onto the muzzle, his hands steady and practiced in the art of assembly. With a sharp click, he racks the slide, testing the action of what he calls a modified toy. Sitting before a wall of mounted weaponry, he reflects on the illegality of his dangerous, hidden passion. He tests the trigger pull of a handgun, his eyes fixed on the internal mechanics that make his fakes functional. Peering through a high-magnification scope, he reminds himself that despite their origin, his creations are very real. Transitioning to the daylight, Ryu Kang-min squats in a playground, looking weary in his school uniform. A battered classmate, his face covered in bandages, submissively offers Ryu a pack of cigarettes. Ryu takes one and places it between his lips, coolly demanding a light from the group surrounding him. Min, his arms covered in intricate tattoos, quickly produces a lighter to serve his companion. From above, the group looks like any other group of students, but the air is thick with tension and the smell of smoke. Choi Hee-won stands before the seated Ryu, her expression unreadable as she asks why he summoned them. Ryu looks up at her through his dark bangs, stating that they have unfinished business from the previous day. His mind drifts to the returning student, a shadow who rarely attends class but carries a heavy reputation. Bored with the posturing, Ryu asks what's wrong with them, his tone dripping with casual indifference. Surrounded by tough-looking boys, he remains unfazed, asking why everyone is acting so tense. Choi Hee-won remains silent, her gaze fixed on the boy who seems to know too much about their social circle. Ryu snapped his cigarette in half, his thoughts drifting back to him, the blonde enforcer hanging out with those kids. A vision of the blood-splattered basement flashes through his mind as he wonders if Jang Hyun-soo finished the job. He remembers Jang's cold, vacant stare after the massacre, a man who has completely lost his humanity. At a local carnival, a series of targets pop back up into place after a session complete message appears. A young woman expertly checks the slide of a shooting gallery pistol with a professional eye. She lets out a long breath of frustration, clearly unimpressed by the quality of the equipment provided. Adjusting her safety glasses, she complains about the zeroing of the piece of garbage she's holding. She continues to scrutinize the weapon, asking the gathered crowd if anyone here has any actual military experience. On the prize shelf, a bizarrely muscular elephant plushie stands out as the coveted top reward. Jang Hyun-soo steps up, racking the slide of a toy gun and asking if that's the prize she's after. A profile of Jang Hyun-soo appears. Age 20, a returning student at Enil High, and a man comfortable with a weapon. Jang Hyun-soo takes his place at the booth, claiming it's his first time shooting while Choi Hee-won watches his form. A loud tang echoes through the gallery as Jang's first shot hits the center of the target with ease. Leaning against him, Choi Hee-won's eyes light up with excitement, wondering if he can actually win the top prize. A rapid succession of shots rings out, every single one finding its mark as the crowd begins to roar. The local boys watch in absolute awe, joking that the military should recruit him on the spot. Having achieved a perfect score, Jang Hyun-soo casually holds the muscular elephant plushie for Choi Hee-won. She accepts the gift with a sly smile, her fingers brushing against his as she offers a quiet thanks. Leaning in close to his ear, she promises him a much better reward for his performance later that night. Jang Hyun-soo looks on, his expression unreadable as he processes the flirtatious offer from the girl. At the arcade, Choi Hee-won playfully spins the muscular elephant plushie, showing off her prize to the group. Jang Hyun-soo stands back, clutching the toy rifle as he dwells on the reward she promised him. His hands are still steady, but his mind is racing with the implications of her flirtatious whisper. Blushing a deep red, Jang tries to process the sudden shift in atmosphere, feeling overwhelmed by her attention. Time passes, and the scene moves to the Seongsu district of Seoul, where the modern buildings reach for the clouds. Choi Hee-won waits outside a subway entrance, her arms crossed and a scowl firmly on her face. She paces down the sidewalk, questioning why a powerhouse like Ryu Kang-min would care about someone like Jang. A voice cuts through her internal monologue, catching her off guard as she's confronted by the very person she's thinking about. Ryu Kang-min steps out, looking cool and detached as he greets her with a sharp, teasing remark. The two stand in the middle of the street, both coincidentally wearing black leather jackets and jeans. Looking down at them from above, the tension is palpable as she asks why he called her out on a weekend. Ryu remains tight-lipped at first, letting the weight of his presence do the talking. He brings up their secret arrangement from the room cafe, his gaze boring into hers with intense focus. He reminds her of the favor she agreed to, a memory that makes her heart skip a beat with anxiety. He pulls out his phone, shifting the mood as he mentions that Seongsu is supposed to be a trendy spot. He asks her to show a country bumpkin from Daejeon around the city, acting like a common tourist. The request is so ordinary that it catches her completely off balance, leaving her speechless. Inwardly, she scoffs at his humble act, finding it impossible to believe he's just here for a tour. She remembers how he effortlessly dismantled a group of thugs, the memory contrasting sharply with his current persona. Ryu points at a bird, marveling at the sophisticated pigeons of Seoul, while Choi sighs in relief that she isn't in trouble. She looks at him from the corner of her eye, concluding that his strange behavior is just a sign that he's smitten with her. Ryu offers a slight smile, asking if she'd like to eat first, maintaining his deceptively gentle demeanor. They set off together down the pavement, looking like any other couple on a weekend date. As he scrolls through his phone, Ryu mentions that his algorithm found a highly recommended restaurant nearby. Ryu Kang-min and Choi Hee-won lean in for a photo. A camera shudders, capturing what looks like a cozy, romantic moment between them. But the one behind the camera is hidden in the shadows. One of Kang-min's pawns records the scene, making sure the bait is set exactly as planned. Choi Hee-won admits the spot is legendary, but she's still holding on to some doubts. Then she sees the spread, a massive 80-dish course. She asks Kang-min if he's trying to LARP as a king or what. Choi Hee-won isn't exactly having a 5-star experience. She straight up asks if he's ever even been on a date before, because his taste in restaurants is honestly pretty trash. Kang-min mumbles a quick apology. She just gives him a skeptical look, probably wondering how he can be this clueless. Ryu Kang-min looks down, confessing that he's never really had any proper friends before. Ryu Kang-min keeps up his clueless country boy act, staring down a plate of bossum while admitting he has no idea how to eat at a place like this. Choi Hee-won just watches him with a sharp, unimpressed look, clearly not buying the performance. Ryu Kang-min sits there with a blank expression while a piece of food is dropped into his bowl. He doesn't seem moved by the gesture at all. Choi Hee-won starts grumbling about her diet being ruined, though she's clearly not letting that stop her from enjoying the meal. Ryu Kang-min and Choi Hee-won sit down for a massive meal. He's got his cheeks stuffed, barely able to talk as he praises how good it is, while she just grins and agrees. Kang-min holds his phone up to a display, calling it a masterpiece of fried iguana. Hee-won just stands there, totally confused. A shutter clicks, capturing the two on a phone screen. Kang-min leans in to wipe something off Hee-won's face, making the moment look intimate for the hidden lens. The two eventually made their way to a quiet alpaca cafe to take a break. But the star of the show wasn't exactly in a social mood, letting out a loud screech the second they got close. Kang-min is trying to appreciate the alpaca's unique cry, but the animal just spits right in his face. Meanwhile, Choi Hee-won is happily feeding them, convinced they're the gentlest creatures on Earth. He's genuinely offended by the audacity of the beast, while she just watches him struggle. It doesn't help that another one decides to start munching on his hair. Hee-won captures the perfect shot of the disaster. The protagonist is mid-panic with an alpaca clamped onto his head, and she thinks it's the funniest thing she's ever seen. Their date continued at the Seongsu Gallery, a super trendy spot to soak in some culture. Ryu Kang-min is doing his best to look like a sophisticated art critic, even though he's clearly out of his element. The centerpiece of the exhibit turns out to be a literal urinal titled Excretion, not art. It's a bit on the nose. He leans in, claiming he can feel the raw emotion of the piece washing over him like a flush button. Choi Hee-won just stands there, wondering if he's actually serious. They continued to be photographed while chatting about the exhibition poster, still playing the role of excited tourists perfectly. As the sun sets, they head to a more glamorous part of town, lit up by high-end store signs. Kang-min is still obsessed with documenting everything, taking pictures of Hee-won even when her back is turned. She's starting to get annoyed with the constant photography, but he jokes that he won't stop until he's satisfied. She notices a notification on his phone saying his storage is full, which is weird because he has over 1,000 terabytes. He just smiles and tells her it's because her photos are national treasures that need all the space they can get. It's cheesy, but it works. Night fully sets in, and the city lights take over. She admits that she actually had a good time on their little tour, and the mood feels surprisingly genuine. But Kang-min isn't ready to call it a night just yet. He's got one last stop in mind. He brings her to a classic cork shooting gallery at a street carnival. Hee-won looks at the targets, skeptical that this is how they're ending the night. The bullseyes are lined up, looking like easy wins for anyone with half-decent aim. Hee-won's expression shifted as she recalled the image of the blonde guy. In a split second, the goofy student mask slipped, revealing a much sharper and more focused gaze. The shooting gallery owner welcomes them with a fake smile, promising a cute plushie for just 1 hit out of 10 shots. Kang-min plays along, saying it sounds way too easy, while the owner internally laughs. The guy thinks he's got an easy mark because he's rigged every single rifle at the stall. The sights are so far off that he's confident even a veteran wouldn't be able to hit a thing. Kang-min fires a test shot, and as expected, it's nowhere near the target. He turns to Hee-won and asks if she wants to make a bet, since it's clear the game is rigged. He points at the shelf of plushies, looking specifically for a prize. If he hits every single target from here on out, she has to do him one more favor. She agrees, thinking it's impossible. The owner is still relaxed, convinced the kid is just showing off for his girlfriend. Suddenly, the air fills with the sound of rapid-fire shots. Targets start flying off the shelf one by one. The owner's jaw drops. He's never seen anyone compensate for rigged sights with that kind of precision. In a matter of seconds, every single target has been knocked down. He didn't miss a single shot. Kang-min casually hands the rifle back and asks if she wants a turn, while the owner starts sweating, wondering if this kid is some kind of elite hitman. He leans in close to help her aim, guiding her through the motions like a regular guy on a date. And right on cue, he snaps another perfect date photo of the two of them. Later, the date finally comes to an end as they walk back toward her apartment. His grand prize turns out to be a hideously pink blobfish plushie. It's objectively ugly. She can't believe he chose that thing, but it's surprisingly bouncy. As she walks, she starts replaying the day's events in her head. She's bracing herself for whatever crazy favor he's going to ask for after winning that bet. The big request? He just wants her to post a photo of them together on social media. It seems innocent enough. She laughs to herself, thinking about how predictable he is. Looking back, she realizes the Seoul tour excuse was a little too obvious, even for him. She remembers him being all sweet and wiping the sauce off her mouth earlier in the day. She smiles, thinking he's just a nice, goofy guy, while Kang-min stays in the background, busy on his phone. She has no idea he's been setting a trap the entire time. Hee-won stares at the social media post of their date, still trying to process the whole day. She's back in her room, clutching that hideous pink blobfish plushie, and wondering if Ryu Kang-min actually thought this would work on her. She's blushing like crazy, muttering about how annoying he is, even though she clearly didn't hate the attention. But someone else is watching. A thumb scrolls through the social media feed, taking in every detail of the post. Every photo is being scrutinized. The gallery visit, the smiles, the whole manufactured, romantic vibe. Even the sweet moments, like him wiping her mouth, are being watched by an unknown pair of eyes. The post is blowing up, racking up nearly 1,000 likes in just a few hours. It's exactly the kind of attention Kang-min was looking for. Oblivious to the danger, Hee-won steps into the elevator, ready to finally call it a night. But as the doors slide open, she stops dead in her tracks. Standing right there in the dim hallway is a ghost from her past, Jang Hyun-soo. The hallway is dark and silent, making the encounter feel even more like a nightmare. The pink blobfish hits the floor as she freezes, her heart dropping into her stomach. Hyun-soo steps in close, his voice a low, terrifying crawl as he tells her it's dangerous to be out so late. Before she can even think about running, he lunges forward and grabs her by the throat. He forces his way into her studio apartment, looking around at her home like it's his personal playground. As he pins her down, he tells her it's been a long time since that day, the day that changed everything. His mind drifts back to a night that started out just like any other, with a drinking party at her place. The room was full of life, with friends cheering and the alcohol flowing freely. Everyone was bragging about their alcohol tolerance, making the soju taste like sugar water. Hee-won was playing the responsible host, telling everyone to drink in moderation so they wouldn't end up sick. Hyun-soo was right there with her, playing the role of the reliable friend who'd make sure everyone got home safe. Back then, she actually trusted him. She thought he was a good guy she could rely on. He gave her a reassuring smile, telling her she didn't have a thing to worry about with him around. As the night went on, the empty bottles started to pile up in the corner. Eventually, the whole crew was wiped out, leaving a sea of green glass on the floor. Her friends were sprawled out across the apartment, completely dead to the world. Exhausted from the night, Hee-won finally curled up on her couch and fell fast asleep. But Hyun-soo wasn't asleep. He sat there in the silence, watching her every breath. He slowly crawled closer, his hand reaching out toward her as she slept peacefully. In a voice that would make anyone's skin crawl, he whispered to her, asking if she was really out. She looked so vulnerable, completely unaware of the predator looming right over her. His expression twisted into something monstrous, his breathing heavy as he prepared to cross a line he could never come back from. Back in the present, a scream echoes through the apartment building, piercing the night. Hyun-soo looms over her while she gasps for air on the floor, screaming that reporting him ruined his entire life. He rants about being expelled from school and having his family abandon him, all because of her. In his warped mind, none of this was his fault. He's completely delusional, blaming his victim for his own crimes. Hee-won stares up at him with pure hatred, calling him exactly what he is, a pathetic sex offender. The truth hits him like a physical blow, and for a second he looks stunned by her defiance. But then he snaps, screaming that she was the one who led him on and wanted it to happen. He brings up every little interaction they ever had, convinced she was touching him on purpose. In his sick fantasies, her friendly smiles and hints about rewards were all invitations for him to take whatever he wanted. He's convinced that telling him how reliable he was her way of sweet-talking him into her bed. He's back to collect on those delusions. Jang Hyun-soo continues his twisted rant, claiming that Hee-won was the one who liked him first and that she's been leading him on like a fox. Hee-won stares at him, her face a mask of cold disbelief as he projects his delusions onto her. He shoves his phone in her face, convinced that she only posted the photo with Ryu Kang-min to make him jealous. His smile is wide and vacant, the expression of a man who has completely lost touch with reality. Hee-won's eyes widen in horror as she realizes just how deep his obsession goes. He points out the similarities in her dates, obsessed with the fact that she went to a shooting gallery with another man. Finally snapping, Hee-won clenches her fist, unable to listen to any more of his absolute nonsense. She lashes out, striking him across the face with everything she's got and demanding to know if he's a complete psycho. Hyun-soo's head snaps back, his eyes hidden behind his bangs. Hee-won calls him exactly what he is, a schizophrenic mess who needs his mother. A sudden, deafening gunshot rings out through the room. The blobfish plushie explodes in a shower of stuffing, and Hee-won screams in terror. Hee-won is paralyzed with fear, staring at the smoking gun in his hand. This isn't just a threat anymore. Hyun-soo levels the pistol at her, confessing that he's been practicing for this very moment since the day she got him expelled. He grabs her by the hair, forcing her to look at him as she whimpers in pain. He's drooling, his eyes wild with a manic energy as he tells her he's shaking with excitement to finally have her. She screams out for help, but the sound is cut short as he pins her against the wall. Suddenly, a hand reached out from behind Hee-won and shoved a cloth over her face. Hyun-soo's expression froze as he was unexpectedly interrupted. From the shadows, Ryu Kang-min watches the scene unfold, surprised that his target was lured in so quickly. A predatory smile touches his lips. Hearing the paparazzi to stage the date photos was a move that paid off perfectly. In a dingy, trash-filled alleyway, the true architects of this trap are gathered. Kang-min's pawns, hidden behind masks, check their phones. They've been busy flooding social media with the bait. They show off the couple photos they took from a distance, making sure the world and one specific person saw them. One of them sighs, cursing Ryu Kang-min's name under his breath. They're clearly doing this out of fear. They remember the beating they took at the Room Cafe and realize that running these errands is the only way to stay on his good side. They scroll through the photos they staged of the happy couple, hoping they did a good enough job to satisfy their boss. One pawn admits he doesn't understand the plan. He can't see any reason for Kang-min to go to all this trouble for a girl like Hee-won. Outside, the city night is quiet, hiding the violent confrontation happening within the apartment walls. Kang-min finally steps out of the darkness, confronting Jang Hyun-soo directly. He admits he's been looking for him. Hee-won lies unconscious on the floor, used as nothing more than a piece of bait. Kang-min seems almost bored by how well it worked. Kang-min mocks the stalker, asking if he was truly so desperate that he fell for such a childish trick. Hyun-soo bristles at the insult, his grip on the gun tightening. Hyun-soo demands to know if Kang-min is her boyfriend. Kang-min just gives him a dry, sarcastic retort. The stalker's eyes go wide with rage as he aims the handgun directly at Kang-min's head. Hyun-soo smiles, a terrifyingly empty expression as he decides that killing the competition is the easiest path. A second shot rings out. Hyun-soo fires without hesitation, the bullet tearing through the air. Kang-min hasn't even broken a sweat. He calmly notes that the guy doesn't believe in giving warnings. Hyun-soo realigns his aim, declaring that once Kang-min is out of the picture, Hee-won will belong to him. He pulls the trigger again, the muzzle flash lighting up the dark room. Kang-min moves with unnatural speed, dodging the bullets as if he were dancing. He asks if the girl is really worth all this effort. The apartment is silent for a heartbeat, the tension thick enough to choke on. Kang-min proposes a game, a shooting bet. The winner walks away with the prize. Both men are now armed, facing off in the small studio apartment. Kang-min's eyes are cold and focused. He levels his weapon at Hyun-soo, warning him that his gun offers nothing but instant death with a single shot.